Live and in color, everyone. Welcome. Phil Nagy on Sports, joined today by Ginny Weasley, the 10-month-old golden doodle puppy. And of course, Kit, who is hanging out in Seattle. You can see he's flaunting his sweet high rise digs right there with the market in the background. But woke up this morning with that 10-4 feeling, baby. 10 wins.
Feels so good.
Been pinching myself all day that this is actually happening and actually real. Um, so yeah. Okay. Well, let's go full screen. Sorry, it looked like it was just me for a second. Now let me make sure we're on here. Because when I looked at the Zoom, it was just me on the screen. Why am I the only one on the YouTube video? Oh well, maybe you'll pop up here in a second. Otherwise, they're not going to see Seattle. Hey, there you are. Okay, we're good to go. All right, how did we do with the offensive side of the ball, Kit, on the keys?
Alrighty, so first key was drive efficiency. Boy, did we see that. So we had three clutch drives in this game. First one for 75 yards, and then two subsequent drives for 95. Although that's not even including penalties on that last one where we kind of got set back. Nick Chubb scores the great touchdown, and then we have to go back and do it again after some penalties. Ends up being about I think it was 115 yards of how far they actually end up driving on that in that drive. But talk about efficiency. That was awesome. It was good to see. Baker was just picking apart the zones and just making it look easy out there. And then that kind of brings us to our second key here, back to the run game basics. So if you look at the stat line, this doesn't look like we were very successful in the run, but actually they were so respecting our run so often in this game that it opened up the pass game that we just picked them apart. So in reality, we actually hit that key very nicely. There were some very effective runs in there. Not as many, chunk yardage, but they didn't need it. They didn't really need to pound the ball. They still ran the ball, I believe, 21 times, but they didn't really need to because, the Giants just sat there, and were kind of frozen in mud a lot of the time because they really couldn't react to what our offense was doing because they had so much respect for that run that Baker Mayfield just picked them apart. I mean, there was not much they could do about it, and it was just death by a thousand cuts as far as, and not that some of them weren't nice chunks, but man, they were just lighting them up and marching up the field, and that's exactly what you want to see. So the last key there being points off of turnovers or the short field. That one, no, not really. I'll call it a push, but that's because they didn't have any short fields and they didn't have any takeaways. So that kind of makes it hard to meet a key if you don't ever get any. Which we can talk a little bit about the defensive side, how we didn't really take the ball away here on this one. But on the other side, they didn't take the ball away either. So we'll call that pretty solid for us on that front. But yeah, no. So the offense, as we all know, Baker Mayfield with 84.4%. Are you kidding me? He missed 5 passes in that entire game and just lighting them up. Got to give a lot of credit to Rashard, to Landry, to DPJ. I mean, those guys were all just exactly where they needed to be. Got Hunt involved there, got Hooper heavily involved in some clutch spots, some Abercrombie. Njoku had a really critical, kind of rip the ball away type catch. I mean, there was great stuff going all over the field. Baker was fitting into tight spots. And then other places where, the guy could have caught it in a peewee leg, man. It was like, so wide open in spots where we were just ripping open zones, and there was not much they could do about it.
Yeah, that was great. That was great for sure. It was good to see Hooper kind of get involved. It feels like he was such a big offseason signing, and we were so excited about it. And I think he shows up probably more in the run game than we realized. But it was good to see him get in the end zone, and it felt like some of our summer sims where it was like, hey, need a first down? Bang, Austin Hooper, move the chains. So
absolutely,
it was good to kind of see him kind of break out a little bit. Not that he's like been bad or anything. It just feels like he's been. We were expecting 100 catches and in Atlanta Falcons numbers, But I think his role is just different in this offense, and he's clearly doing it very well. So, all right, what
Right.
about? Oh, go ahead.
Well, actually, I was going to make one more point about Hooper real quick. You're right that he is super critical to that rush game. But one of the beauties of having him on that field to go with Bryant and Njoku is you can bring in those heavy goal line set, with one running back in the backfield. Look, everything, and we did this in this game. In fact, that Austin Hooper touchdown is a goal line set from the 3. But you bring in 3 tight ends, extend your line. Everybody and their mother thinks you're going to run it and try to pound it in for the touchdown. And you've got 3 very dynamic receivers in those 3 tight ends. It's not like you've got 2 guys that you can't throw the ball to because they're a blocking only tight end and, with one guy that maybe can make a play. No, it's like all 3 of those guys are very dynamic threats. And you can't afford to sit here and be like, well, we'll just defend the run here because you saw what happened. Hooper just torched him for that. I mean, it was only 3 yards, but still easy touchdown, right? It was simple.
Nobody around him at all. Yeah.
Yep.
Awesome. All right. What about the defensive side of the ball? Obviously 6 points seems like a pretty successful day, but let's talk about the keys.
All right. So keys on defense. Was to stop the run and then kind of gain the right to rush Colt McCoy in this one. We actually did a pretty nice job of stopping the run. Gallman really did not have a very good day. He was kind of stymied in this one. We actually saw really good play out of our linebackers. Give a shout out to Taki, who played with his hair on fire in this game. Give a shout out to our boy Cadillac Carl, who came in with some really big clutch hits. And Sheldon Richardson, of course, especially on that second shutdown on their 4th down conversion, that 4th and 1 or 2 or whatever it was, like inside the 5, where we shut them down and take the ball away on downs. That was absolutely crucial for us, and that was us, sticking to gap discipline. Sheldon Richardson making an awesome shuck like he tends to do on that defensive line, just taking his man and just moving him out of a spot and forcing that run to go nowhere. And then Carl Joseph really comes up and cleans up beautifully with a huge hit. So we did a really nice job against the run. We did put them in a position where they were kind of, eventually forced to have to throw the ball more. And that's really where you started to see our D rush start to come alive, especially at the end. We did get that sack finally. Seemed to take forever, but bear in mind too that Colt McCoy was getting the ball out quick because that's what he does. He's a game manager style. He's going to get the ball out of his hands in a second and a half, and usually under 2 seconds, which that's not a lot of time to get to the quarterback. And Miles again was a little bit winded. He's still kind of coming back from all that. Hopefully we can get him more to like what you'd expect and what he's been. But for what we saw, he was still very good. So still felt like Miles to me out there just wasn't quite getting to the quarterback as much. The second key, though, stack in the box and take away the short yardage passes. I thought we did a reasonably good job of that at times. We were stacking the box pretty effectively, which took away the run. But they did manage to get the ball out and hit relatively effective, especially on 3rd down. It was a little bit disappointing on some of those 3rd downs they were able to convert. Where McCoy was being effective enough, and if we could have stopped some of that, maybe they don't score any points in this game, because for the most part our defense played pretty well, and I can't really complain about a 6 point game. Then again, part of this also is Freddie Kitchens on that 4th and 2 call, and then Joe Judge. I'm not going to give Kitchens credit for that bizarre fake field goal nonsense. That's a special teams call. It's not going to be. That'll start with a special teams coordinator, whoever that is for them. I don't really know, but that for sure gets signed off by the head coach. If the head coach doesn't have buy-on a fake field goal, a special teams coordinator gets fired. That's especially if it doesn't work. So that's why for sure that Judge was involved in that one. So I'll kind of lay that one at his door as far as, especially because you got Prefer on the other side. He's going to be ready for something like that. In fact, they were in safe mode there, and they handled it beautifully. So, but that's kind of getting ahead to our special teams key stuff here. And then the last piece, the D line needing to feed. Not really. We didn't really do. I mean, we did much better in run defense. Had great contain. We were filling gaps, but we really didn't get to the quarterback very much. But we already kind of talked about why that happened, and Colton McCoy just getting the ball out of his hands and making it hard for our D line to get there. And so we only really got the one sack split between Lario and Miles. So hopefully we'll see some more of that against the Jets.
For sure. Yeah, I know you and I were talking during the game, and it's just you always, watch these other games where it's like, oh man, they're doing all they can to keep Aaron Rodgers off the field. Oh, they're doing all they can to keep Mahomes off it was like, the Giants are doing as much as they can to keep Baker Mayfield off the field. It was incredible.
1 hour first half.
Yeah, I mean, they had 2 drives, and yeah, they missed the 4th down, and then they, got tipped at the line, and then they scored. But it was just like, this is an enigma. Like, what is happening to Browns football? Like, we're that team that they're so afraid. Like, and even like Collinsworth saying it on the call, he's like, give Joe Judge credit. He knows that he can't keep up with this high-powered offense. He's doing all he can to keep him off the field, running and going for it on 4th down, fake field. Like, this is what kind of crazy land are we living in? This is the Browns that they're talking about that has that amount of respect, and you're that scared of them. Like, it's just crazy. It's just crazy to me that we're watching that happen.
Yeah, who'd have thought this was going to be a team that, especially because first half of the season, you look at this team, okay, they got a really scary rushing attack, but everybody's kind of labeling Baker as, oh, he's just a manager. He's not going to throw. Sure. And, granted, he wasn't overly involved in some of those games and made some early mistakes, and they couldn't really rely on him because he wasn't as comfortable in the offense then. But don't tell me Baker's a game manager at this point. You cannot believe that at this point. He is just tearing the defenses apart, and it's because he's fully comfortable finally. His receivers are where he needs them to be. He's making those reads. In fact, he's making impressive, like, first read, second read, third read, and then he's either going to the check down or he's scanning the field again, like full fields, reads. And part of the reason we can do that, or he can do that, is because this O-line has been
incredible,
just unbelievably good, giving him so much time, and he trusts them, fully trusts them, where he's not looking uncomfortable, getting those happy feet in the pocket, or like rolling out when he doesn't need to because he doesn't trust that the rush isn't going to be in his face in the next half a second because
that Greg Robinson and Chris Hubbard aren't going to let him down.
Exactly. So that not being the case this year, because this line has been just completely dominant against some very good defensive line play. I mean, we've had some, the Eagles were great. The Washington was great. We've seen, the Colts great. They're, Steelers, of course, they made our life difficult, but I'd say we've come a long way since that point with the Steelers. And I think that that interior rush in particular that we really had some difficulty with, that really tends to shut down our offensive attack. Since the Steelers game, we've really gotten much better in the interior protection on the line. So I'd say that we've got a much better chance when we go to play the Steelers again of stopping that interior rush, which really shuts down our offense. And if we can do so, that's going to be huge for us against the Steelers, because that's where they make their money with Hayward and some of those guys, especially, that now that TJ Watt's kind of rushing by himself on the edge. But I will say that this interior defensive line for New York is, right up there with the best we've seen. Really they are excellent. They've got 5 deep and 5 deep at starter level quality, and they're playing like it. And they great rotation there. And man, talk about having a guy. Let's throw out a quick throw out here. Nick Harris, man, that guy came in there and played lights out. In a position, he practiced for it. Landry made the comment that, I've never seen him play it. Well, he actually, Stefanski comes back and like, actually, he's been taking snaps there. So Landry obviously doesn't pay attention to the lineman too much. But on the other hand, a position he is not. That's not his primary position. It's just a spot he was ready to step up in, and if he had to. And 2 offensive snaps in, and you're bam, there he is. Let's go. and he comes out like a champ. Really, only allows the one pressure, which was a sack. But on the other hand, that's those are some big bodies that dude who is not as big as some of those guys is trying to handle, especially is really kind of amplified at the guard position, because as a center you can get away with being a little bit smaller because most teams don't play with those nose tackles anymore. It's not really part of the game as much. So having those big beefy three techniques that we see in the defenses that we tend to play against, those are the guys that cause troubles because they're so big. Having a smaller guard can be a problem. Mm-hmm. But man, he made it look like, I mean, you didn't even think about the fact that Nick Harris was in there the whole game because he was just playing so well.
Right, and even on the sack, he did get beat, but it also looked like he passed them off to Treader, and then Treader got beat too.
So, well, actually, I think Treader was trying to help him out on it, but
I would say I'm not sure if they give half credit sack for the offensive lineman or not. So
right.
All right, so let's talk about those special teams. We didn't want to get ahead of ourselves.
Okay, so special teams, we had the Be the Better unit, and I'm going to call that one a push, especially because we came out and were just flat-footed right out the gate on special teams. That big return up to the 49, I think it was quite a impressive return. We had Parkey out there trying to make a tackle, and you've got Redwine trying to hang on for dear life, and it was a little freaky. Collinsworth makes the first comment. His first comment of the game is like, "Well, maybe," as they're like, he's going to get tackled around midfield. There's like, and Collinsworth like, "Well, maybe." He's still kind of going, but luckily that didn't actually continue because it was scary there for a little bit. But then special teams, not the same unit, but still special teams. A lot of the same guys are recycled for these teams because those are the guys who aren't seeing as much of the field. Tend to be more the practice squad level players and into your second and third string guys, right? So your backup safeties, your backup linebackers, your those kind of guys. So those guys are going to be on many of your teams. So many of those same guys are coming out to play for the field goal block, right, on the same drive. So not that much longer. They drive down. They're pretty much on the 5-yard line, going to kick a field goal, or we think they're going to kick a field goal, and then they do this bizarre shift that you really only see in like some rinky-dink colleges and high school, and a few random places in the NFL just to try to I guess screw with people and see if what they're going to do, and they end up throwing to an eligible center, which is not a very common thing. You have to have very specific formations to make that happen. But so a punter throwing to an eligible center, trying to do some really funky stuff out there, and it just does not work. And hey, credit the guys out there after having gotten pretty badly burned on their kickoff return coverage or their kickoff coverage, then come into the safe kick, because that's what that was. That was definitely the safe team on the PAT, and or sorry, not PAT, the field goal unit, and then they go for this fake, and guys are pretty much ready for it. There was in the center, there was a little bit of confusion, it looked like at first, but they kind of got settled in, knew what they were going to do, knew what their assignments were, recognized the fact that the center was eligible. And the funny thing was, if that were a quarterback back there, that might have been a touchdown, because on the slant on the right hand side of that formation actually came pretty wide open there briefly, but he didn't really make a read. He just kind of threw it and into triple coverage at that point, so it didn't really work for him.
All right. Well, obviously we got the dub. Let's talk about the overall keys.
Oh, actually, let me second key on the special teams. No, one more. Sorry. The other piece being the penalties. We did have 2 penalties, we did not meet that key on special teams again. I'm sure Prefer is not going to be terribly happy after this performance on that unit, or in the special teams in general. So, got to clean those up.
Okay. My bad. Now the overall keys.
All right. So First of all, take care of business. I can't say any more about coming out and doing exactly what we needed to do. Many people, said, "Hey, this was just kind of a boring game," and in many respects, it kind of was a boring game in the respect of, there wasn't a lot of excitement to it because they scored a field goal. We score a touchdown, and it's still a game at that point. But 195-yard drive into the second half, kind of clutch 95-yard drive because they very well managed that clock, and all the way down to end of half, and game's over. Game's over at 13-3. It's there is no question at that point, who's going to win or what's going to happen. You could tell it was very well sealed at that point, and there wasn't going to be a lot they could do about it. So, that is the definition of taking care of business. People will say, well, they only scored 20 points, so it's, and what if they had gone for it? I don't buy any of that nonsense. It was boring, but it was, kind of boring by manufacturer at that point. We were burning tons of clock. They were burning a bunch of clock, which they couldn't afford to do. But it was because we were taking care of business, and realistically, in those positions, if they had come out and started swinging in the second half and start scoring points, or in the first half, if they get those conversions and score points, we're going to be right back and scoring touchdowns, because we effectively could score at will on that defense. Even though it's a very good defense, we were very, very much showing in that game we could score at will. Yeah, so that's exactly what you want to see. Second point was. Or key was to don't let them hang around. And like I said, there was over in the first half, so they were not hanging around by any means. There was no point where I don't think any of the Browns fans were feeling uncomfortable in that game at all. I don't think anyone should have felt uncomfortable in that game. It was just a comfortable win. It was like exactly what you would expect to see a team that is, a playoff contending unit come out and do, even though they were a team that was desperate to win to be able to, have a chance into the playoffs for their own. They came out with that same desperation, and yet we came out there and very even keeled and took care of what we needed to take care of and got it done. So absolutely what you want to see there. Last key being go for the blowout performance. We didn't really do that, and some of that was just the clock management. The game was already kind of over. We were just running the ball and taking away the clock and making it a very short game. I mean, that was one of the shortest games of NFL football I think I've ever seen.
Yes, that was
he was over in 2.5 hours or whatever.
Yeah, that was crazy.
So it was pretty crazy how short it was, and yes, it was not a blowout, but it just didn't need to be. By the end of the first half, that score, you could tell watching that offense, they weren't scoring enough to win that game anymore. So,
yeah, no, I'm for sure. I'm for sure with you. Come here. Why are you being all weird? Sorry, the dog's being all weird. Okay, only one kind of chat or question from the chat here. And did you think that any of the Browns got snubbed with the Pro Bowl voting when it came out today?
Oh, I absolutely do. I think the very first one on that list has to be Teller. Teller has been playing out of his mind this year, especially considering he was a no-name nobody, not totally unknown, but he was somebody that was completely unproven, and comes out and just has a unbelievable season, and arguably better than Bitonio, who got into the Pro Bowl. Now, Bitonio's been there 2 years in a row, so this is his third year running. I get it. He's kind of got some name recognition, a little bit of that street cred going on right now. But man, Teller is the number one rated offensive lineman in PFF in the NFL. And then in terms of guard, of course, he's obviously, if he's the best lineman, he's also the best guard. Bitonio is the third best PFF rated guard in the NFL. So there's actually a guard in between. I would absolutely say that Teller deserved to be in that Pro Bowl. Outside of that, though, I think you could certainly make a case for Kareem Hunt with what he's done. He's got, let's look at this objectively. He's got over 1,000 all-purpose yards, and he's got 10 touchdowns. He's the only one in the NFL, by the way, that has more than five or more rushing and receiving touchdowns this year in the NFL. So 1,000 yards, 10 touchdowns. The guy's been hugely dynamic for us, and so I think he's got a case that could be made as well for the Pro Bowl. Outside of that, though, I don't think anybody really, there were some folks that potentially were on pace for it before injuries, or could have gotten into a place to prior to injuries, that maybe could have had Pro Bowl seasons, but no, I don't think anybody else particularly got snubbed other than those mentioned.
Yeah, I thought maybe Treader and Janovich. Janovich is the number one PFF fullback. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't think about Janovich.
They took Ricard, which is like whatever. It is what it is. But
yeah,
I'm with you with Hunt too. I don't think Josh Jacobs had a better year than him.
Yeah, no.
But it is what it is. We can't have the entire. Also, I don't have the game on in the back. Apparently, Demarion is keeping us up to date on the chat that the Bengals are up 17-0 right now on the Steelers.
Holy cow!
Which would be a Christmas miracle come early if the
right. No,
happens.
If that holds out and somehow the Bengals pulled the wicked upset of the now very much spiraling the drain Steelers, then I would be absolutely having a Merry Christmas. Let's say they win, we beat the Jets, then we're playing them even records for an AFC North champion or AFC North division lead. Title. That'd be incredible. Huge. That'd be absolutely huge.
So we'll see. We'll see if the Bengals can keep it up. But yeah, I appreciate Demarion for keeping us. I don't have them in a room with a TV that doesn't have that channel. So in any event, well, we appreciate it. Thanks for being on. I'm going to go ahead and sign off here because this little puppy is starting to get a little crazy. Yes, you are. So we need to amend that. But it's always fun, and it's always fun to be, 10-4. What in the world is happening to us Browns fans? We're doing it. We're living the dream. And of course, I mean, we're not going to start jinxing anything, or but people are like, of course, it would be the 1 year people can't go to the Super Bowl and the Browns would get in, right? It's like, I don't care. I don't care if people can't go. It still counts.
It sure does.
I will still find a way to get there if I can. Maybe I'm just hanging out in the parking lot outside the stadium, but I'm going to try to get there. So
yeah, you and me both, brother.
We're not going to get the cart before that horse just yet. So, all right. Well, I appreciate it. Phil Nagy, Kit Nagy, as always. Thank you to all the subscribers. Really appreciate you guys. We'll be back with the sim again on Friday of this week. So we will not see you until after the holiday is over. So have a very lovely and Merry Christmas. Take care of yourselves, and we'll get out of here the way we always do. Right, Jenny?
Go Browns!